Hello everyone. Hope you're having a great conference. I would be sharing a pre-recorded video as I'm traveling on vacation currently, and unfortunately I do not trust the bandwidth of the hotel I'm staying in. When Saranda told me last year about the conference that is planned on people analytics, I was extremely thrilled. Unfortunately, due to COVID, I was a bit nervous whether the conference will go ahead or not, but really happy that we're having this in a virtual format. I'm very passionate about this topic, and I was very happy to share a live case study that we implemented in our organization with all of you. So without much ado, let me start by sharing a bit more about a real life case example of how we implemented people analytics in our sales organization and achieved strong results. Hello everyone, I am Himanshu. I take care of HR for Coty, a cosmetics company for Northern Europe, which is UK, Ireland, and Nordic countries. I am here because I love HR and I love numbers. A combination, when it comes together, results in magic. I'm probably not the first one who's made this statement today. And my company, or many other companies for that matter, are not the first ones to make this claim. But this is not only true, but also real when you look not only in the claims or in the ways the companies execute their strategies, but also when you look at their balance sheets. People or people costs become the biggest assets indeed. And when we talk about today's world, wherein a lot of companies rely on a service-oriented mindset, whether they are into products or they are in services, people do end up becoming the make or break situation for their company's success. The question is, how do we really bring this statement to life? That becomes the biggest challenge most of the companies are facing today. And that challenge becomes even bigger in situations like the times we are living in today, wherein a disruption caused by a global pandemic really challenges us to leverage the maximum of our biggest asset. Richard Dupre, the president of Procter & Gamble, one of the most iconic companies in the consumer goods business, made a very famous claim that he does not need his billion-dollar brands or factories or money. All he needs are the people that work in the company, and he can rebuild the company in a decade. That's indeed true for most of the organizations today. However, when we look at the level of sophistication, of capabilities, of systems, of investment of time, of attention, there's a bit of a discrepancy between what is being spent on the buildings and on the brands versus what is being spent on the people. Let me give you an example on the next slide. A very simple keyword search on LinkedIn jobs for analyst positions would give you jobs like brand analyst, sales analyst, data analyst, systems analyst, trade marketing analyst, etc. Only 1 in 25 jobs would be working in the HR function, which is a bit of a sorry state of affairs because people, as we said, are the biggest assets, they are the biggest investments. So it's rather right or important that people capabilities, people systems capabilities, or people data analytics capabilities do get their right share of importance. Given the importance of this topic, we piloted a case study within the Nordic markets of a company. And what we did was to use the power of data, of people analytics data, to drive certain changes, which yielded astounding results. And I'm very excited to share the results of the study. A bit about Coty. Coty is one of the largest beauty companies in the world, and it is divided into 3 divisions. The consumer beauty division takes care of a lot of makeup and cosmetic products. Some of the brands include Max Factor and Rimmel. The luxury division takes care of fragrances. Within perfumes, we are the largest company in the world with big perfume brands like Hugo Boss, Lacoste, etc. And the third division is the professional beauty division, which takes care of products that we sell to the specialty salon channels like Vela, like OPI, and GHD. Coty is a $10 billion USD company in terms of net revenues. It has almost 20,000 employees, and it has 77 iconic brands that a lot of you would have used in your day-to-day life. And it is present in operations in 43 countries. What we did was a pilot within the Nordic region, which has roughly a revenue of 200 million US dollars, 300 employees, and it is spread across 4 countries: Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and Finland. For the purpose of this case study, we are looking into Coty Nordic professional beauty business. Professional beauty is a B2B sales business. What we do through our brand portfolio of Vela, OPI, GHD is to sell products and services to the specialty beauty sector that comprises of hair salons, nail salons, beauty spas, and so on. Typically, when you visit a hair salon, you would have seen a lot of different products and services like the hair color, etc., that rely on a relatively complex technologies. And our role over there is to partner with hair salons to provide them the most cutting-edge solutions available in the market. It is essentially a very high fixed cost driven industry. Most of our investments are in the sales organization, or the second biggest investment chunk is into trade. Given the fact that we depend a lot on our partners to grow our business, we invest in them to help them develop as well. Consumer promotions are not a very big investment item because of the fact that we work with businesses and not with the end consumers. Like most other businesses, our business has been impacted by COVID as well. This global pandemic has resulted in a lot of hair salons and a lot of beauty spas, etc., having reduced operations or shut down entirely, as a result of which the industry and our company has been impacted. Now, that is not to say the more disruptions that were caused even prior to COVID linked to channels like e-commerce. A lot of consumers are preferring to buy products online or through a channel that are cheaper, because of which our traditional channels has been disrupted to begin with. Now, for this case study, the example that I'm sharing with, we have excluded the COVID effects because the activity was done predominantly pre-COVID. What we hope to do, of course, is to reiterate this activity as we gradually revamp out of the pandemic and use that to develop our business further. This is something that relies on data as a strong foundation element, as a result of which we can do it again and again and again and try to improve our sales organization, our sales operations, and maximize the efficiency and productivity. Our biggest business challenge is to maximize returns on people investments, our biggest investments. And that is only possible by improving the productivity of our people. And that, by definition, is only possible by enabling peak motivation. Only if each and every person in the company gives in their very best will the collective output be strong enough. And the only way to maximize the productivity of the organization is to maximize the productivity of the individuals themselves. And hence, as a result, there is so much of focus on employee motivation, on different tools and techniques that companies use to gauge the levels of engagement, to gauge the levels of motivation, to do annual culture surveys, etc. And that has been a traditional approach to collect a lot of insights, a lot of data, and take actions based on them. We tried to do something different here. So what we have here is a traditional motivation fix HR loop. So something that most companies use or have been using for many, many years. It starts with doing an analysis or a survey, which is typically done annually. Now, some companies have also started doing it quarterly or on a real-time basis to gauge employee engagement levels. Based on those survey results and certain other qualitative inputs, gaps are identified and an action plan is created, and following which the action plan is implemented. This is a usual technique employed by most companies to gauge engagement levels, identify issues, and solve for problems so that people are able to give their absolute best. Now, this is one way to go about it. However, it has certain challenges. First and foremost, there is a lag effect, so that the implementation happens by the time the organization has moved on or the motivation has moved on to some other issues. And secondly, it relies a lot on symptomatic inputs. And by that, I mean inputs based on feelings or feedback that is pretty much on the surface. Many at times, it does not address the root causes that are displayed or that can come out very clearly by certain other KPIs or organization result indicators for which we might need a very different way of approaching things. What we simply need to do is to use the tools and capabilities already available at our disposal that we are using to understand our brands, that we are using to understand our consumers, that we're using to understand our systems and other financial investments, basically using the same approach to understand the motivation levels for our people. And it's almost imperative that we do that given the various reasons that we've talked before. The tool that we used for our case study was regression analysis. We requested someone from a finance team who is an expert in this area to do a modeling exercise. The data sources for this exercise were essentially from the HRIS system. What we wanted to do was to really understand what is driving our top performers, which factors are consistent or are a common trend amongst all the top performers, so that we can understand probably the underlying factors that contribute towards it and try to reapply it throughout the organization. We correlated performance with various organizational people metrics. The first one was tenure. We tried to see whether tenure or the number of years spent with the company had any correlation with the performance levels. The second factor we tried was age. The third one we tried was gender. We also tried correlating the customer mix with the performance levels, whether having a certain mix of customers, either in terms of their buying potential or the channel in which they operate, had any correlation with the top performers. The fifth metric we tried was the product portfolio, whether selling certain products correlated strongly with the top performers. And last but not the least, we also did some modeling on the prior experience that people had, both in terms of number of years and also the qualitative experience, depending on the industry from which they had worked in before they started working with our company. Now, this regression analysis gave us very, very interesting insights. Without going into a lot more detail, we realized that there were two factors that were strongly correlated with performance. The first one was tenure. We realized that tenure had a strong correlation with performance, with peaks at 0 to 3 years and 7+ years, which means that a person who joined a company typically performed at their peak within the first 3 years, typically in the second year. And then there was a trough, following which after 7 years, they had a very strong correlation with performance. The second factor that was strongly correlated was the customer mix, or essentially the combination of different kinds of customers the salesperson was serving, which also had a very strong correlation with performance. Now, to take an actual implementable measure, tenure was something that you could not actively influence as a variable. However, customer mix is a variable that you can action plan on and make some changes. To begin with, of course, we had to do a bit of a deep dive into which of the attributes of the customer mix were correlating most strongly with the performance levels. People analytics journey, We did a bit of a second level deep dive on the customer mix to really understand in more granularity which aspect of the customer mix really yielded better performance from people. So we looked at factors like the size of customer, whether they had any correlation. We looked at the purchase history. We looked at the time that each customer spends with the sales associate in terms of number of meetings and number of touch points. We looked at the trade terms variations. We looked at order patterns, both in terms of frequency as well as size of the order. And last but not the least, we looked at the contract structure. What I've highlighted in the form of a color coding is the factors that were strongly correlated, which were highlighted in green. So for instance, purchase history and time spent with sales associated. The factors that were somewhat correlated, those included factors like size, trade terms, and contract structure. And those are shaded in yellow. And the third one, which is order patterns, which is shaded in red, is a factor that had no correlation with the sales performance. This indeed was an eye-opening exercise for all of us because we realized that most management time and focus is being spent on customer attributes that are least correlated with sales performance. And that, in effect, was a big success of this case study exercise because it revealed that the areas in which we were spending our investments on, our focus on, our discussions on, were not the areas which typically strongly correlated with sales performance of our people. And hence, as a result, that gave us an impetus to start relooking at the way we do things at the start and to start relooking at the aspects of the customer journey that we prioritize. This exercise essentially gave us realistic data and insights to go laser sharp into the interventions that we need to improve sales performance. And one of the key levers we identified was the sales associates' engagement with the customers and the time spent with them, and also the quality of that. We identified 3 key interventions that played a key role in developing the business and the level of motivation. First and foremost, the interventions were in the area of customer engagement. So what is the level of sophistication of engagement that the sales associate has with all the customers? The second set of interventions were linked to the social media capability and the digital capability of the sales associates, because we realized that engaging with the customers and different touch points was a key indicator of high sales performance. And last but not the least, we were also able to rewire our reward mechanisms and compensation models that were linked to the key factors that contributed to high sales performance. And we were able to reapply them across the sales associates in the Nordic countries. The result of these focused interventions were quite astonishing, not only in terms of increased sales performance and employee motivation levels, but it also helped the management teams and the people managers focus on the right things, on things that lead to long-term sustainable improvement in the operations of the business, in the levels of engagement of employees, and channeling the interventions in the right direction. The 3 key takeaways from my side. First and foremost, it's absolutely vital that we link people analytics to business analytics so that we are focusing on the right indicators. Secondly, we need to get the right capability in HR. HR function needs to get help from data experts, from finance experts, from people who can understand numbers and who can make sense from them. Last but not the least, it's not a one-time exercise. It's an iterative process that needs to be carried out regularly and needs to be updated as the external environment changes, as the business priorities changes, etc. This is one exercise that helps us get more closer to the business, that helps HR create more value for the business, and last but not the least, helps HR become the business partner it always inspires to be. Thank you, everyone. I hope this case study gave you a few ideas to take away. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have on the app, so please go ahead and type on the chat box and I'll be happy to take them on a live basis. Thanks and have a great rest of the conference.